Welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Each week, we bring you discussions with educators on how they use blended, self-paced, and mastery-based learning to better serve their students. We believe teachers learn best from each other, so this is our way of lifting up the voices of leaders and innovators in our community. This is the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Hello and welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. My name is Zach Diamond, and I'm a high school media production teacher in Washington, D.C., and of course, a Modern Classrooms implementer. And today I'm joined by Candi Williams, a first grade teacher in Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome to the podcast, Candi. It's great to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Our topic is the mentor and mentee relationship in the Modern Classrooms Virtual Mentorship Program. But before we get started, because you are a mentor, I assume that you have had a Modern Classrooms journey up until now. Can you tell us more about it? Tell us who you are, where you're at in your education journey, and how you started your Modern Classrooms journey.
Yeah, so I have been a teacher for 20 years. This is my 21st year.
Wow.
And up until COVID, I taught third grade and kindergarten for just a couple of years when I first started. And then I moved to first grade the year that COVID all started. So that was my very first experience in first grade, was about 3/4 of the year in school, and then a fourth at home. And so it was daunting to have to teach from a computer to first graders on their computer. It was so complicated. It was not just teaching, but I'm having to also instruct them on how to use the applications we're using. And,
Right.
They can't read, so I can't hold up a sign necessarily that says, don't do this or do this, if they're muted or things. So it was very complicated.
Yeah.
And so as we were going and we got back into school from COVID, there was a flyer that went out in my district about the Modern Classroom. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, I just went through that. I literally just made videos and taught them, but I just couldn't be there to do small groups, which is my biggest pet peeve of the whole thing. And so I was like, well, I have to do this. I already feel like I know what I'm doing partially. So if I can just combine it and actually do it in the classroom. And so that's when I got started and went through the training.
That's awesome. And I guess you were hooked, right? Because here you are now, you're a mentor, and I assume you're a DMCE as well.
Yes.
If you're a mentor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to be able to put the things that I did during COVID back into play, but then also meet with those kiddos who I just missed out on when we were in COVID.
Right? Wasn't that interesting? Going back into the building and meeting the kids. So I actually have two short little stories based on what you just, all the stuff you just said. My daughter took Zoom first grade, and I can only imagine. I mentioned I'm a high school teacher. I was teaching middle school at the time. I can't imagine the amount of stuff that you just can't take for granted. So props to you. That must have been a very rough couple of years. The sixth graders, though, my other story, I remember we did this weird hybrid thing at the very end of the full COVID year, the full Zoom year. We went back into the building for the last 6 weeks. And I got into the building and I was like, you kids are also short. I imagined you being taller, I don't know why, but what a strange experience that was. What a strange time.
It was wild because it really felt like I was connected to those kids. What was so strange that I never saw them or didn't see them very much, in person, but because I was in their home.
Right.
With them every day, and they were in my home. When we got back to school, suddenly it was I felt more connected to them than I think any other class I'd ever had.
I think so. Yeah, I agree. I had a homeroom of sixth graders that year, and that was the group of kids that I first met with. I was like, I feel like I know you all really, really well. I know you in a way, but it was weird. I guess I was assuming you were all taller. You're little sixth graders, you're little kids, and we've been doing this very adult thing to do to get on a, virtual meeting, right?
Yeah.
What a time. Okay, I want to say also, I read the bio that you sent us, and you said that you have fostered 100 cats since
Yes.
COVID.
Yes.
How?
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
So when COVID hit, we were all stuck at home and there wasn't a lot to do. I mean, there was a ton to do, but you couldn't go out and be in public. And
Right.
so I have twins and they were in first or kindergarten when it first started. And I was like, well, why don't we just try fostering a couple kittens, just give us something to do so that we're not bored all day when we're not doing school stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it just transformed to every time we would get done with those, we'd go pick up a new pair or a new set and sometimes it would be 2 kittens and sometimes it'd be 5 or 6 kittens. At one point, I think we had 21 kittens in the house because some were leaving and some were coming.
God.
And so it's just been this continuous, when one leaves, we bring some more in.
Wow. And you have cats of your own too, I would assume?
Yes, we do. 3 cats.
Yeah. That's incredible. Are they together, all these cats, with your cats,
Yes.
or do you keep them separated?
No, they all are together, and our own cats are older, and so they just take care of them. They teach them how to be cats while we're
That's great.
just taking care of and playing and teaching them how to be friendly with the other with hopefully their new family.
Wow, that's incredible. That's a lot of cats. I am impressed.
It is.
We have 2 cats. We just adopted a kitten. She was born in January. She's very young. I should say, I guess it's August of that year. It's September. Oh my God. It's September of that year. School has started. So she's, about 9 months old now. But she was quite a handful. So I can't imagine, but that's awesome. Love to be a cat family.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that in, that I forgot that it was September already. Oh my God. This year is just whew.
It's flown.
Okay. It is. It's been quite a year. Okay. So let's talk about the mentor-mentee relationship. And I guess I wanted to start off this discussion talking about your relationship with your mentor when you took the program. I think it's good to, when we teach, we often replicate the models that we had as teachers, right? And so I'm curious what kind of a relationship you had with your mentor, and how that has informed your mentorship.
Yeah, I really enjoyed going through the mentor process. My mentor was amazing. She was a first grade teacher as well, which really helped to connect. She actually used the same math program that we used, which really helped. But
Wow. Yeah.
that's not necessary. But it definitely was somebody else is doing this and they're doing the thing I'm doing. So it was a nice feeling. But she was just it was great to have somebody that was able to give advice, give feedback on what I was doing so that I knew if I was doing it right or if I needed to change things. It's hard to know. I know the process can be done, it's meant to be done on your own, but that mentor part really, it helps to make you to allow you to know that you're on the right track or you're not and it needs to be adjusted. And I think that's the biggest thing is that feedback component of okay, I'm doing this right, or oh, okay, give me ideas on what I can do better. And that is really such an important part. And my mentor was amazing. I don't even think she's a mentor, Kala. I don't think she's a mentor anymore. I think she's even further up into the modern classroom, but she was quite amazing. And she had some great ideas. And in my mentor group, we met weekly. And so I also got to meet the other people that were going through the program that I was going through at the same time. And so it was kind of nice to bounce ideas off of them as well.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of the benefit of having a mentor, right? Is especially a one-on-one mentor, and we'll talk more about this, but you get a thought partner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What an incredible experience, though, to have a thought partner who was almost in the exact same context as you.
Right. Yes. It was really awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us, I guess, for listeners who are unfamiliar, can you sort of describe the role of the mentor now that you are one? Describe the mentorship program and what you do as the mentor for someone who is taking it, and the specific supports that you provide for them.
Yeah, so a lot of times I do coaching calls, and so I'll actually do a Zoom or a Google Meet meeting, and we'll get to face, talk about what are their goals and what are some things that they're struggling on, or even shoot some or troubleshoot some of the problems that they're having on the computer. I've had many where I've had a pop-up meeting because they're unsure of how to download something. And so we get on and we work it out together. It's a great, having that mentor is wonderful to be able to show their work and then also say, here, I have an example if you'd like to see it. I've already problem solved this. So if you want to see an example of this way, in addition to what the program offers, you have more access to that as well.
And then there's also an aspect of like they submit work to you and you review it, right?
Yes. So giving that feedback, I look at, they'll do a component mastery check or, the classroom sorry, I can't think what it's called, but, and so we'll go through and I kind of look at it and give some feedback, always good and always some things to work on, just because it's always nice to be able to say, okay, this is really great. And have you thought about this as well? Because I think as a teacher, we sometimes know when things are working, but we don't always know what might not work or what could work better or a different way. So it's kind of nice to have somebody there that can also say, okay, this is a great idea. And how about this too? Or how about trying it this way? Or if it doesn't work out, how about thinking about it this direction? And so it's really nice to be able to have that thought partner to bounce ideas off of and give new ideas from someone who has done it and knows what works and what doesn't and things like that.
Totally. And as I was writing up the sort of outline for this episode, I was thinking about the parallels between the mentorship program and an actual modern classroom, right? Where, the materials are there for our students and we can sort of pop in as needed. We provide that same kind of support, like on a very individualized basis, right? Talk a little bit more about that, the value of this individualized support. I think this is really the crux of this topic, right? Like I was saying, in a modern classroom with our students, we do that, right? We provide the support that they need when they need it, and I think that on an even like higher level view, the fact that we're providing support as needed and not just like making everyone do the same thing because we think it's the right activity or whatever, I think that it makes us seem more genuine, right? And I think that having that relationship with your mentor, if you're a teacher who is learning, is also really valuable. So yeah, talk a little bit more about the value that you think is added by having a mentor who really gets to know you and your class and provides the supports that you need.
Yeah, I think it's, it's so beneficial to not just to have somebody there that's going to, give you feedback on a submission, but also that can pop in. I mean, there have been many mentees I've had where I will get a panicked email. I'm working on this and I just can't seem to figure it. And so I'll say, okay, well, let's set up a meeting. Let's get on and I can help you before you get to that point. We'll start hashing out some ideas. I'll give you some ideas. You can tell me what you're thinking. I can tell you what I think would work. And so it's really nice to have like an actual thought partner right then, right when you're thinking about it versus after you've already written it all up, performed it in the classroom, it failed. And now you're like, what do I do next? I give up. I'm right there as a mentor to say, no, don't give up. Let's just adjust this, or let's just change this, or, it's really having that mentor just really solidifies the work that you're doing and gives you that like instant feedback, which I think definitely does help you to stick with it. I know when there were times when I struggled and I, would be in the middle of it and just like, have a moment of, I haven't done this before. Because as a mentee, you're just learning it. So you haven't done it in the class. It's all like, hypothetical, like this is what I would do kind of a thing. And you're developing something you're hoping to put out into the classroom, but not everything we do works. I know my first unit there were a lot of things that I had to go back and go, okay, that didn't quite work for first grade. And so being able to talk to her and say, oh, you did this? Okay, that might be the solution that I needed. Let me try that. And so it was really nice to be able to go back and say, this didn't work. Can you help me figure out a way to adjust it, not change it?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting aspect of doing the mentorship program during a school year is you get that immediate feedback from the kids too, right? when I was mentoring during the summer institutes, like we would, it was really awesome to be able to have that like community of educators, because we would meet every week, right? Like
Yeah.
the 5, 10, 15 mentees that I had would all meet on, Zoom or Google Meets once a week. And that's awesome. I don't really recall getting much of that during the school year. But on the other hand, during the school year, you get that immediate feedback, and you have a person who's experienced in the modern classrooms who you can, talk to. You can have a coaching call. You could email with them and be like, this didn't work. Or, celebrate. This was awesome. Like, this worked great. Thank you for that advice. I got this email a couple times. Like, thank you so much for your advice on how to, format a pacing tracker, right? That really worked.
And it was nice that my mentor was a first grade teacher. So I did never feel like I was going to her and she was giving me, oh, well, in middle school, this is how this works. Or in high school, this is how, like she was like, no, I know how first graders are. I know how much you have to add in to make them successful, but also that they can do it and they can be independent. And so it really gave me the drive to when I became a mentor to say, hey, I do this. I do this every day. I promise it will work. You just have to make some adjustments, and, I can help you with those adjustments if needed.
Totally. And so this is going to be one part of my next question for you. Have you mentored teachers who aren't first grade teachers?
I actually have. Yes. I have mentored a lot of kindergarten. I've even mentored preschool who are starting to get into this, which is amazing. I have mentored special education. And just this last session, I had a middle school teacher, because the process is the same no matter what, which is good. There's just little adjustments. I mean, like for a first grade teacher, when I make my tracker, my public tracker, I put pictures, their picture, instead of names, because they can't all read each other's names yet, but they can identify each other by picture. So when they need to find someone to help them, they can find their face. So it was those little things that I was like, oh, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just adjusting it for first grade.
Right. There's like a fundamental level of modern classrooms that I think is applicable all over, right? From preschool all the way up to adult education. Obviously, they'll look very, very, very different. I definitely mentored. I was a music teacher at the time, right? And I mostly mentored music teachers, but there just weren't that many music teachers taking the mentorship program, right? And so I also mentored Spanish teachers. I mentored people who were in middle school, high school teachers, college professors. I once mentored an 8th grade Latin teacher, and I was like, well, I'm completely lost. Like, I don't know, but yeah, like there's the modern classrooms of it all, right? Where you can help somebody else sort of like discover the model, how the model will fit in their class, fit for them, right? Which I really, really think is an important part of implementing the model. There's not a cookie cutter way of doing it. Everyone's classroom is different. Even every first grade teacher's implementation, I'm sure, is different.
Yeah, definitely. And I learn from my mentees. Every now and then somebody will produce something and I'll think, oh my gosh, I never thought to do it that way. And I make sure that I let them know, like, how amazing. I never even thought about that. And can I borrow some of those features? And, and so it's not just me being their thought partner. Sometimes they're my thought partner as well, and can enhance my classroom.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that I wrote that question into our outline because I think that it comes up so often when we talk about mentoring in the modern class. And I said this too, many, many times I've said this, that I learned from them as much, if not more, than they learned from me. And these, like, we're mentoring great teachers. You're like a veteran teacher, and your mentor worked with you. And right, obviously you have lots of things that she could learn from you. And same for me. Talk more about that. Talk more about the things that you've taken of, how mentoring has provided value for you, and having those relationships with teachers has provided value for you.
It's really been amazing because, when I went into teaching, I think my brain just automatically thought, I'm just sticking with kids. I'm just, I just want people who are younger than me. But as I went through the mentor program, and I realized that this was also a passion of mine. Like, I love the process of having the kids be, self-paced, and it's mastery based. So I know they're gaining and they're making the gains they need. And if they aren't, I know I have time to help them get there. And so by doing all that, it's really helped me to realize that I love teaching it to other people. So by going through that process myself, it's made me realize I love also helping adults be teachers, be better, equipped to try the modern classroom or a different process, and that way they have the option or opportunity to learn a new process as well, which I have absolutely loved and have really enjoyed working with adults, which I have not had a lot of experience with until this. And so it's been really nice to be able to bounce ideas, have actual conversations. It's hard to have a conversation with a 7-year-old. So, it's been awesome to have a conversation with an adult and about how we're teaching and their ideas and my ideas and how I can help, but how they are also helping me. And it's amazing.
Yeah. And I feel like I've been saying this a lot lately on the podcast, but one of the lines in the intro that I say in the intro to the podcast is that teachers learn best from each other. And I'm always thinking about like going into another good teacher's classroom or even not a great teacher and like watching somebody else teach. It's just the best way to learn. And, the virtual mentorship program is kind of that, right? It's great for the mentee because they're showing you their stuff, right? And you give them feedback on it. So it's sort of like in a roundabout way, they get to kind of walk into your classroom, but it's more evaluative than that for you. It's like, oh, check this out. Maybe I could try that, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's been really awesome. It's been awesome because in this process, I've actually had in my district, I teach in a really large district, and inside that district, there are quite a few modern classroom teachers. But I've also had districts that are just right outside of us reach out and ask, can they send, a couple teachers over to just watch a day, and that way they see it in action to know if they're ready to take that plunge as well. And so it's been really cool to go from being a virtual mentor to then being a live mentor and be able to answer those questions. But I reach so many more people virtually. I mean, I've had mentees, all over the country. I've even had in other countries. That has been really eye-opening and amazing, and help them figure out ways, if their technology isn't not everybody it's not one-to-one with their Chromebook or with their devices. And so being able to help them figure out, okay, well, that's okay. It can still work. Let's just think about a different way. And so it's been really eye-opening to become a mentor and to work with so many different types of teachers.
Yeah. It helps you grow to problem solve like that. Right. And
yeah,
obviously it opens your mind to the different contexts that people are teaching in throughout the world. I'm wondering, of those teachers who have been able to observe you, were any of them your mentees? Have you ever had the opportunity to meet a mentee in real life?
Yeah, actually, 2 of them came and they observed, and then they signed up for the program and requested for me to be their mentor. And so then I was, which was really kind of neat to be able to watch that process of them deciding if they wanted to do it and then deciding they did based on what I was doing in the classroom, which was very flattering. And then to be able to mentor them through the process for their classroom. That was really awesome.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And again, this is another story that I tell a lot on the podcast, but like my first exposure to modern classrooms, besides the PD list thing that I signed up for it from, and the little blurb about it, was going into Kareem's classroom and seeing his tracker on the board and being like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Right? Like, yeah, let me just do that. And I went that day. It was a Friday. The cohort that I was with went down to Eastern to visit, and we came back to school. School hadn't ended yet, and so I made a tracker on the drive home and like put it up on the board because I was like, well, this is an obvious thing to do,
right?
Like I had read it before, but I never like it never clicked for me. I never really conceptualized how to make it live in a classroom. And so, yeah, that definitely amped me up to do the mentorship program. So that's awesome that seeing your classroom did the same thing because yeah, it's a lot. We hear this a lot. Like modern classrooms it's a solid model. It works.
Yeah. And it is amazing, like, why we never thought about this. Like, I know there have been pieces that I've always, that I have thought of, okay, that would be great. That would be great. That's great. But I've never thought, like, oh, put them all together. Like, oh, that's the puzzle. There it is. It's amazing.
Yeah. That was the thing. I feel like as I think about the model, it's like the more that I sort of probe the idea of the model in my mind, I'm like, oh, if you're going to do blended self-paced, like if you're going to do mastery based, it has to have a tracker involved, because otherwise the kids would just go through everything on their own. And like, you need to check for mastery if it's going to be it's like all the pieces fit. You're right. Like it all connects. So yeah. I want to ask you if you've encountered any challenges as a mentor. And I obviously don't want you to like throw any mentees under the bus here, but like, what have been some challenges for you in mentoring?
So I think some of the biggest challenges that I experience right now, and maybe it's, just the times that we're in, but, the signing up and then not following through, it's hard as a mentor, because you're excited and you want to share the idea. And then, things happen. Sometimes family issues, or, they just can't commit to it. And that's totally understandable. But just there is definitely a lot of big hopes, and then they just don't, it's not a follow through. So that's a little frustrating, but it gets overshadowed by the amazing ones that do step up and do it and follow through all the way, because that's the tricky part. Each part builds on the next. And so I always try to introduce, when I have that first meeting, is let them know, like, you're going through this process just like you're going to expect your students to go through it. You're going to do a section, and then you're going to get feedback from me, and then you're going to do another section, and then you're going to, and it's this constant process. And when you get to the end, you will have something you can actually put right into the classroom. And so, I've had a couple mentees who've gotten so close. They got right to the last section, and then they just, the fire just went out or whatever. And, it was hard, because it was like, I saw such a potential, but hopefully they went ahead and finished it later when they had more time, or, had a different experience with it. But, just those little not showing up, signing up for something and not showing up, that's a little frustrating, but, it happens.
It does. I mean, I remember it was kind of strange. There were like no shows, right? But you never know. Someone who never connected with me at all by email, chat, phone, anything. I guess I remember also some mentees who would be like, why do I have to do this? It's just another thing that teachers have to do, right? And I would always try to communicate what you were saying. Like, the thing about this training, and the reason that I'm generally very critical of most of the PDs that teachers have to do, because yeah, let's be real,
they could be in an email.
Most of them aren't very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the reason that I became so, I don't want to say obsessed, but like I became so engrossed with modern classrooms as a training was because you are actually building something that you will use in your classroom. In the module where you make a self-pacing plan, you build a pacing tracker, and you can use, you used to be able to use the self-updating tracker. Now there's the Wavio tracker. There's resources for you, but like, this is something that you're going to use in your classroom tomorrow, right? Like you could literally make this now and use it tomorrow. As long as you have, enough lessons for your students to self-pace on, which is another part of the training. You build all the stuff. And I would always try and frame the training that way.
Yeah. And I still use the tracker that I created during the training. I actually use it now. It's been adjusted, and it's been, there's been things that have added or changed, but that is still the original tracker that I use, because I built it on my own, and it's like, I'm proud of it. And so, I use it every time.
Totally. Me too. And I'm proud of it too. And I know it. Like, I know how it works. Mine's I've talked about mine before. I can link it. It's just a spreadsheet, right? But it does lots of like formulas, and it counts things. And I know how it works. When I share it with others, they're like, what is going on here? But I'm like, I get it. It works for me. And my students get it, because the stuff that they see is simple, right? It's funny because I've been mentioning this, like I moved up from middle to high school, right? But I'm in the same school. And so I kind of like looped back around and I have some of the same kids again. And I put my tracker up on the board and it's very like notoriously yellow, blue, and green. And they're like, that thing again? Like, oh, I thought that I was done with that. Very sweet.
Yeah, that is awesome.
No, I totally feel you. It's my tracker. I get it. Like I made it. Yeah. So Candi, what do you hope to see in the future and what goals do you have? And this question could be for you personally, it could be for you as an educator or as a mentor.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I definitely want to expand it more in my classroom. I use the modern classroom process for all my math instruction, except for the very first unit, because in first grade, we have to kind of get them acclimated to school. And I use it for all of my phonics instruction and my handwriting instruction. So I'd love to be able to even try to add it to another subject. And because once the kids get the hang of it and they get going, it really is easy to just move to another subject and say, okay, we're doing the same process. It's just a different, content. And so that's kind of like my own personal goal. I think as a mentor, I would love to see the meetings. I know when I went through the mentorship process, it was a little bit different than it is now, but we actually met like once a month or something. And we me, the mentor and all her mentees, and we got a chance to bounce ideas off of each other even. And I would love an opportunity to do something like that again, because I do really think I took a lot away from those meetings. Any kind of meeting where I was with somebody and having that meeting, all my coaching calls, I feel like those are like the most important meetings you're going to have, because that's that opportunity where you get to ask all the questions you have, any question that's been, you've been thinking or been worrying about, or you're stumped on, like that's that quick response time right then versus I'll send an email later. So I love as many of those that I can possibly have. I would love to continue those.
Yeah. It's funny. It didn't occur to me to even mention this, but actually I think that's where the idea for this podcast started, because it was 2020, May of 2020, and I began mentoring. It was, it had been like 2 months of COVID at that time. And we were all like, well, what's next? Are we all just going to be home forever now? Like, we didn't know what was going on, right? And so I was having all these incredible coaching calls with teachers, and obviously it was like a hard time, as you were saying before, it was a hard time to be a teacher, but these coaching calls where we were like problem solving and people were telling me about their classes and we were doing all this stuff, right? I was like, these conversations are interesting. Like, there's stuff to learn here. And so I emailed Kareem and I was like, do you think we could make a Modern Classrooms podcast? Because like people talking about modern classrooms, they have so much to say and there's so much interesting insight into MCP and into teaching and into school and all of it, right? And I agree, those coaching calls are just incredible. I feel like in the parallel to an actual modern classroom, that's like you sitting down with the student who needs your help, right? Or if it's like a scheduled monthly thing, that also is like you making the rounds and making sure you check in with everybody. And like the materials are there, they have access to you. And yeah. I want to ask you a follow-up question. I'm curious, did you say you started with math or did you start with math and phonics?
I started with math.
Why math? I feel like that's a very common thing that elementary teachers start with, and I'm not one. And so I'm curious as to why.
So I know from my own personal experience during COVID, I have a team. I'm on a team of 5 teachers for first grade, and I just happened to be the math person during COVID. So I was the one making all the math videos and giving all the instruction. And so I was like, okay, I've already done this. Like I've already done this for an entire year. I know I could do it. So that's the reason why I chose math. But I have noticed a lot of people choose math. And I think it's just because it is very conducive to watching a video on an instruction of math. You think about reading, you're having to read, you want to hear them read back to you. So it's a lot more personal. Whereas math, you can give an instruction on the computer, they can follow along, and then they can practice it on a piece of paper or on the computer and turn it in, and you can tell very quickly whether they mastered it or they didn't.
Sure.
So I think that it probably just a little more conducive to it. But I think other subjects definitely work. But math, it just was my comfort zone. That's why I started with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess that's interesting. Wonder, like, I hope that this doesn't come across the wrong way. If this sounds mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean it to be that way. But like, you said that another one of your goals is to expand into your other subjects as well. And I wonder, like, what's the barrier for you? Is it the front loading of content? Is it coming up with how to present the other subjects in MCP? Or because math is the most conducive, right? And maybe phonics is more difficult, although it sounds like you've already done that with phonics. But like, what's the barrier?
So I think definitely time. I mean, and I tell all
Sure.
my mentees this, that it is a lot of work up front, and then it loosens up as you go. But it's starting from scratch with another subject, and with first grade, a lot of our stuff is so hands-on. I think science would be amazing to do, because there's so many scientific videos and science that things that you could do on the video. But a lot of first grade, for me, science is hands-on. Go and draw this, or we're going to do this together. And so it's a little bit harder, because you have to then pick and choose what could work, and then what do I have to have as a live lesson. So things like that. So there are just some subjects that, at least for the littler kids, it's a little trickier to put into a video form. But I mean, I think it could work. It just is time consuming. It's time consuming, and if for me in my district, we just shifted a different math program, which is always fun, especially when you've already gotten everything created for the last math program.
I was going to say, does that mean new math videos?
Yes. So last year I started, and I'm finishing this year, and it's having to recreate all of that again. So it was kind of one of those things where I had everything under my belt. I had everything prepared. The kids were, everything was rocking and rolling. And then they're like, oh, let's do something different.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, guess what, guys? We are going to start from scratch. So that's been like a lot of my time consuming. So that's been all my planning periods. So once that's finally taken care of, that's when I'm like, okay, now what can I take on that's next?
Totally. And I really didn't mean that to be like an accusatory, like, why aren't you doing science yet? Right. I was just curious. And yeah, like the time thing is real, and it is something we need to communicate to the mentees that we work with, because like that can be one of the things that I think is demotivating
Yes.
to some folks who are like,
Yeah.
I already know how to teach. Why do I have to go and do all this stuff? Right. Me personally, I didn't see it that way. I was like, wow, this is what I've wanted this whole time. Let me go and do this, because I can see this working in my classroom from the get-go. But I did have mentees who were not like that. And so, yeah, the time commitment is big.
It is big. And, I think the thing that kept me going through that was the knowledge that I knew that teaching the other way, I was always missing out on wonderful opportunities to reach my lower learners and my higher learners. I was always teaching to the kids in the middle. Those were the kids who were the successful ones. I had a lot of kiddos who were bored because they already knew it, but we had to all do it together, or the ones that just struggled and I couldn't get to them. And with this process, now my videos are reaching the middle. I'm able to challenge the high by giving them extensions, or, the challenge activities, the aspire to do activities. And then I now have the time and the freedom to say, hey, come and sit with me. Let's work this out together with my kiddos that are struggling, because they get me anytime that they need me, because I'm not in front of the class teaching anymore, at least not most of the time. And so doing this and researching this process and training in this process, that was the number one thing, is I was like, I can finally do what I know I'm supposed to be doing when I teach a class. I'm supposed to be reaching everyone, and I can't this other way, but I can the modern classroom way. So that's why I fell in love with it immediately, and I have not looked back. And I've even had some pushback from admin, and I'm like, I think I can make it work. Can you just give me the opportunity, and then you can come and observe me and tell me if, what you think. But I really, and they have been generous enough to say, okay, give it a try, and come in and say, well, it looks like you did it, so that's fine. So
Yeah. If you walk up to the kids, they usually know what to do because it's right there on the board, right? Like the tracker, it says what's next. Well, that's fantastic. That is awesome. Candi, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I just like the mentorship program. I loved mentoring when I was mentoring a lot. It's so rewarding. And, again, much like teaching in a modern classroom and how it frees us up to work with kids one-on-one and do all that great teaching stuff, it also frees us up to build relationships with them and be authentic with them and be ourselves. And I think that that's true of this mentorship program as well. I think that working with someone who genuinely cares about your professional development, about you learning and getting to have a thought partner, it's just so valuable. And I really appreciate you coming on to talk more about it. So if our listeners wanted to connect with you, many of our listeners have not taken the mentorship program yet. So if they were curious to speak with a mentor, how could they connect with you?
Well, you can email me anytime. It's Candi, Candi.Williams @modernclassrooms.com. And I respond very quickly. I love talking to people who are interested. I love sharing my story and giving any information that I have out and sharing what I know with the public. So anytime.
Yeah, that has absolutely come across too. And
Thank
I'm
you.
certain that's what makes you such a great mentor. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, Candi.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Listeners, remember you can always email us at podcast@modernclassrooms.org, and you can find the show notes for this episode at podcast.modernclassrooms.org. We'll have this episode's recap and transcript uploaded to the Modern Classrooms blog on Friday, so be sure to check there or check back in the show notes for this episode if you'd like to access those. Also, we're asking our listeners to leave a review if this podcast has been helpful in supporting you to create a blended, self-paced, mastery-based learning environment, because that does help other folks find it. Thank you all for listening. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday. Thank you so much for listening. You can find links to topics and tools we discussed in our show notes for this episode. And remember, you can learn more about our work at www.modernclassrooms.org, and you can learn the essentials of our model through our free course at learn.modernclassrooms.org. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at modernclassproj, that's Proj. We are so appreciative of all you do for students and schools. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday with another episode of the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.